What's up, Playmakers? I'm your host, Lily Hennig. Now, I know we had an exciting week last week as our Jayhawks are now 4-0, but I need you to stick with me here because now we take on Iowa State in a huge Big 12 matchup, so we need that energetic, packed booth again. Now, with that being said, we have all the KU sports content you need, so Jayhawk fans, we've got you covered here. Namdi is back with his notebook this week, and I'm back at the Fantasy Suite. The boys are back at the roundtable with an in-depth look at this weekend's game, and Gus is here this week with a high school roundup. More to come on the MLS and MLB, and we have an exciting history lesson for you guys on KU's homecoming. Stay tuned, Playmakers, because there's much more to come. It's showtime. Here we go. Hello everyone. So happy to be back here again this week, and once again to get us started, let's check out the top headlines and the breaking news from this week. With Hurricane Ian making landfall at the shores of Florida, the Buccaneers have relocated to South Florida where they are practicing in the Miami Dolphins facility. It's still to be determined if Hurricane Ian will force Sunday night's Kansas City Chiefs versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to an alternate location. Hall of Fame quarterback Brett Favre, his charity donated to the University of Southern Mississippi Athletic Foundation while he was recently punished for state funds. The NCAA placed Air Force's football program on a 2-year probation and other issues, penalties for violating recruiting violations. And to round out our breaking news this week, Kansas quarterback Jalen Daniels currently leads the nation for quarterback rankings at a 98. And according to an article written by the ESPN staff, they have ranked Jalen Daniels as their second favorite Heisman candidate with its odds to win currently at plus 2,500. Now to continue our Kansas athletics discussion, let's head to Carson with this week's Rock Chalk Rewind.
Bring you this week's Rock Chalk Rewind. It's been an action-packed week, so let's jump right in. To start things off, let's see what happened with golf this week. The KU men's golf team played in the 2022 Folds of Honor Collegiate from Monday to Wednesday this week. Following Monday's action, the team was tied for 7th place, but after the tournament wrapped up on Wednesday, KU golf placed 6th. It was the team's 3rd straight top 10 finish. Let's run right into this week's cross country. Today, the men and women's cross country teams are competing in the Gans Greek Classic in Columbia, Missouri. Be sure to tune into next week's Rock Chalk Rewind to find out how the teams performed. The KU tennis team swung into their fall season last weekend at the NC State Battle of the Bay Invitational. The highlight of the Invitational was KU's 116th ranked Malkia Nguyen having the biggest upset of her career. She took down South Carolina's number 2 overall, Sarah Hammer, in 3 sets. The tennis season continues their season in the W25 Austin this weekend. The KU women's soccer team took on TCU Sunday night and fell 1-0. The Jayhawks are yet to win a Big 12 game this season, and they look to make tonight the first when they take on West Virginia and Morgantown. Women's volleyball bounced back from last week's tough loss to Texas by defeating rival Kansas State on Saturday and sweeping Oklahoma on Wednesday. You can watch the Jayhawks take on Baylor tomorrow morning in Lawrence at 11 a.m. To wrap up this week's Rock Chalk Rewind, how could we not mention the 4-0 football team? The Jayhawks defeated Duke 35-27 in front of a sold-out crowd on Saturday for family weekend, and Jalen Daniels once again looked like a star. The team looks to continue their unbeaten season tomorrow for homecoming against Iowa State at 2:30. Pack the booth. That's all for today's Rock Chalk Rewind. Now let's head back to Lily.
Thanks, Carson. Looks like all of our KU squads have been showing up and showing out lately, and we've got a couple games here in town for homecoming weekend tomorrow. KU volleyball takes on Baylor at home at 11 in the morning, and then we have a quick break before the action resumes in the afternoon because KU football plays tomorrow at 2:30. Sydney Clark is live at the booth right now to give us a game day preview. Sydney, what can we expect to see during the game tomorrow?
Lily, hopefully we see a packed Booth crowd tomorrow here behind me at David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium as KU is set to face off against the 3-1 Iowa State Cyclones for the 2022 homecoming game. But it's a little bit of deja vu for the last time the KU Jayhawks were 4-0, looking to extend their lead was in 2009 against the Iowa State Cyclones. So what a time to be a student and what a time to be a KU football player. And so right now, KU is set to face off against Iowa State. They're first in the Big 12 right now, but it's only their second conference matchup tomorrow, so we'll see how it faces off. But Coach Leipold and the team both know what they need to do to prove themselves in the Big 12 and prove themselves in one of the biggest conferences in the country. So we'll see how it turns out.
This group knows how competitive it is and where we've been in the past and where we're going to have to be to keep moving forward.
KU clinched their first conference win against West Virginia earlier this season, but after coming off of a season where they were last in the Big 12, this team has something to prove to their conference opponents and themselves, but especially the Cyclones. But Kansas is continuing to improve, and they know what they need to improve on.
I watch what I say because then I'll jinx it or something, but, we got to continue to prevent big plays. Can you, again, be well-rounded in everything we're doing, whether it be defensively, stopping run and pass. I mean, one thing we haven't talked about is I think we're more aggressive up front. But I like our balance. I really like our balance of where we're at with things.
This is one of the best Kansas teams we have seen since 2009, and you heard Coach Leipold. He loves how the team looks on both sides of the balls. KU offensive side, you got quarterback Jalen Daniels in the QB slot, who's thrown 10 touchdowns in the last 3 games with 0 interceptions. And on the defensive side of the ball, we're going to need to see a locked-in KU defense. For Iowa State's defense is #1 in the nation, so it's going to be a tough matchup tomorrow for the second Big 12 matchup of the year. Well, after the break, we'll head to Namni's Notebook for the one and only. So stay tuned.
All right, we're in week 5 of college football and getting into conference play. We're starting to see some emerging stars at the quarterback position in college football, and guys who coming in were looking like the truth are now falling to the wayside and even getting benched. I'm not going to get too opinionated on you guys, but when other guys are outperforming what the experts had them slated as, or guys just not producing at a high level and sitting in favor of younger talents, it's pretty hard to not face the music. My name is Namdan Yanike, and this week's notebook is over underachieving and overachieving college quarterbacks. Now, what type of KU student would I be without mentioning Jalen Daniels? Now, if you're a Kansas fan, you've heard it all, but JD6 has helped Kansas to a 4-0 record and national attention. He currently has thrown for 890 yards, 11 touchdowns, and a 71% completion rate. Go along with that, 320 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. Jalen and the Jayhawks face the Iowa State Cyclones tomorrow at 2:30 at David Booth Memorial Stadium. Another guy who arose from the ashes and is having a Heisman-caliber season is Hendon Hooker of Tennessee. Joe Milton's unfortunate injury last year saw Hooker assume the role of starter and since has torched defenses with 1,193 passing yards and 11 total touchdowns, en route to leading Tennessee to a 4-0 start and 2 ranked wins over Pitt and Florida. They will face off next against LSU. Let's cover some ACC football and Miami quarterback Tyler Van Dyke. Last year, the Canes quarterback had 6 straight games with over 300 air yards and 3 touchdowns. This was his first season at quarterback as well, and it seemed like Van Dyke was primed for stardom. Miami had to play Middle Tennessee, though, out of Conference USA the other week, and they gave Van Dyke hell. Coach Mario Cristobal then had to make the decision to bench Van Dyke after throwing 2 picks and stagnating the offense in favor of Jake Garcia. This Miami team had some high expectations, and they are falling flat with a 2-2 record. Now, they don't play again until October 8th against North Carolina, so let's hope offensive coordinator Josh Gaddis can get Van Dyke more accustomed to the system and return to last year's form. Last person I want to mention is Anthony Richardson out of Florida, who might be the biggest question mark in college football. Now, you watch highlights of Richardson and you see him using his legs, creating plays that way, and also watching as a ball just explodes out of his hand. The arm strength is there. The problem with Richardson boils down to his efficiency as a passer. Before their match against Tennessee, the Gators had 0 receiving touchdowns through 3 games, and that's on the guys slinging the ball. Richardson also had 5 interceptions going into Week 5 and doesn't even crack the top 50 in the nation in completion efficiency. Richardson is a project player, and Coach Billy Napier seems to see the NFL prospect level talent out of Richardson, as do many draft analysts. Hey, there's still over half the season left. Anything can happen for these 4 guys. I wish them the best of luck. But next up, Chad and Emily took it to the streets of KU to ask students about KU football's recent success.
Hey Playmakers, it's Chad, and as I'm sure we all know, Kansas football is 4-0. We figured it was a perfect time to come out on the streets of campus and ask Jayhawk fans and students how they're feeling about the team, especially coming up towards this week's game against Iowa State with a possibility to go 5-0. So let's hear what everybody has to say. KU football is 4-0.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling so good. This is a football school. Come on.
Go Hawks, baby.
I think the only thing I can say is, Bama, we're coming for you. We're here.
Okay, so I don't know if the audio of that last clip just came up, but the girls at KU want Bama. I want to make that clear right now. We want Bama. If KU is going to win and move to 5-0, what's going to be the key to the game for us to take the W?
Definitely defense. I definitely got to see the secondary do their work. Iowa State, they got a good offense. So if we could limit them, stop them, we're going to win.
I think we can win. I definitely think we can win. I think the bet line's 3.5 last I checked. So a win.
You're a man with money. You know what you're talking about. Out the car, Reed, baby. Okay, Reed, I got a quick question for you. KU football is not ranked. What do you feel about that?
I think that's indescribable.
Especially with Kansas State being ranked ahead of us.
Don't talk about that. Don't talk about that.
We're about to get emotional on camera. Get out.
Personally, I think Kansas State paid a lot of money, like all their funds, to be ranked.
I think we should be ranked, but I know our team's mindset is we're going into every game 1-0. So as long as we keep doing what we're doing, then rankings shouldn't matter.
If I were to ask you to point out Ames, Iowa on a map, would you be able to do that for me?
Probably not. Probably not. Nah, I could point to Iowa, but...
Absolutely not.
I don't think I could find Iowa.
Sadly, yes.
No. We don't know where that is.
The resounding answer has been a no for that. There you have it, Playmakers. We got some great interviews on the street. I think the consensus is 2 things. 1, the energy around KU football is fantastic and everyone's excited for this week's game. And 2, no one knows where Ames, Iowa is. So there you have it.
You may not hear it at first, but it's there. Our chant, rising. On this summit, callings converge, voices unify into a chorus that sounds out for good, for greatness. Can you hear it?
We're back. Yes, unlike Texas football, Roundtable with Reed is back for another week. You know us, the boys in blue, and Blake Sevenbergen. Nice to see you guys again, and happy homecoming. This week, fellas, we got Iowa State in town. Let's start talking with the Kansas offense before we go anything with Iowa State.
Yeah, so what I think right now with the Kansas offense is they're unstoppable. I mean, Jalen Daniels has the best quarterback rating in the country. He's arguably been the best quarterback in the country so far. And this offense has ran for over 200 yards a game so far. I like what they're doing, and if they have a B-plus level game tomorrow or better, I like what I'm going to see.
At this point, I don't worry at all about the Kansas offense. They're going to get their points. This Iowa State defense we're going to talk about is obviously really good. I'm not too worried about the Kansas offense. I think there's so much going on in their playbook that not one single defense can withhold them.
They certainly have been able to switch up their looks. But, fellas, let's talk about this Iowa State defense. And as we know, it's a little bit of a different look. What are we going to see tomorrow?
Well, we're going to see a lot of Will McDonald, who has the second most sacks in the country since 2020, only trailing Will Anderson out of Alabama. Their defense is definitely legit. TJ Tampa, Gary Vaughn, and Malik Verdon all had career-high tackle numbers last week against Baylor. I'm a little worried about them. They've got playmakers all over the field, and Will McDonald's just a beast.
Yeah, Iowa State runs this goofy 3-4 defense with inside shade from their defensive ends. Kind of shuts off everything that you want to do through the middle. So Kansas is going to have to set the edge on this defense. Iowa State has been good at stopping the run, only allowing 75 yards a game right now. But they're a problem through the air. They gave up big play after big play against Baylor last week, and it'll be interesting to see what they do this week.
So speaking of giving up big plays and limiting that, let's flip over to the Kansas defense. This team has been a little bit susceptible to big plays, but other than that, been pretty solid so far through 4 weeks.
Yeah, compared to last year, this defense can tackle 100 times better than what we have seen in the past. Last year, they were the last-ranked defense in America, and currently they're up in the 70s, so obviously still not great, but the improvement is there. The big test for this defense tomorrow is to see if they can slow down Xavier Hutchinson.
This is where we find out whether Melo Dotson and Kobe Bryant are the real deal. Xavier Hutchinson is a beast. Who else they got? Jalen Noel. Those guys are going to go off. If Bryant and Dotson can hold them to 5 or 6 catches each, this is going to be a blowout.
Yeah. And something a little bit different with this Iowa State offense, there's a lefty quarterback, Hunter Deckers. One of the only lefties. We've got obviously Dylan Gabriel with Oklahoma, but one of the 2 in the Big 12. Is there something different with that? And obviously they got Xavier Hutchinson. What else do you see out of this Iowa State offense?
Well, Deckers actually has the second best completion percentage in the Big 12, sitting at 71.6%. He does have a 10-to-5 touchdown to interception ratio, so he can turn the ball over, and KU does have playmakers on defense who can force turnovers. But containing Xavier Hutchinson, he's second in the country with 36 catches. He's got to be the main focus for this KU defense.
Yeah, I mean, Jairo Brock and Xavier Hutchinson are what makes this offense go for Iowa State. They're very good talent-wise, and Hunter Deckers honestly might have more talent than Brock Purdy did. I'm worried, though, that Iowa State's offensive coordinator isn't letting Deckers get loose.
Cook.
Not letting Deckers cook.
Yeah, not letting Deckers cook. They never let Brock Purdy cook. So I'm a little concerned there. He throws a lot of interceptions. If Kansas can take advantage of a couple bad passes that he throws tomorrow, it'll be interesting.
So speaking of that, before we send them off for a break again, let's give us our score predictions. We were pretty close last week.
We were. I'm going to start today. Kansas 34, Iowa State 31. I think Iowa State's a very well-coached football team. Lance Leipold said it this week that he strives to build a model like what Matt Campbell has done at Iowa State when he took over that program. But I think Kansas gets opportunistic on defense a couple times, forces some bad throws from Deckers, and forces some turnovers. I think they win by 3.
I got Jayhawks 38-24. I know Iowa State has the most takeaways in the Big 12, but the KU offense is just too good.
Well, this puts me in the position to be the villain here, but I am not going to do that. It's homecoming week. I think Kansas keeps it rolling. I think they win 37-31. Thank you guys for tuning in to Roundtable with Reed. We'll send it to a break.
Hawks money line.
National champions deserve a clean campus. Don't wait for other Jayhawks to pick up your mess. Keep the University of Kansas clean.
Welcome back, everyone, to your one-stop shop for all of your fantasy football content your heart could ever desire. Now, with a new slate of games in Week 4, let's talk streaming options in your fantasy lineups. Wasting no time this week for our quarterback this week, I am suggesting Jared Goff for the Detroit Lions. Yeah, I'm aware that the guy has at least 1 touchdown thrown in all 3 games played and in a pass-catching group that can attack the Seahawks' single and double high zone coverages. I'm eyeing Goff as a potential streamer for this week, and I think it's the play-action passing game for Goff in this one, where he is completing 64% of his passes with 3 touchdowns. Up next, Justice Hill, running back for the Baltimore Ravens. Now we're taking a shot in the dark here in very deep leagues. With Hill in a Baltimore offense that has struggled to create a productive run game outside of quarterback Lamar Jackson. Yeah, I'm aware that J.K. Dobbins is back this week and rushed for 23 yards on 7 carries in Week 3. However, I can't ignore the effort that Hill showed rushing for 60 yards on 6 carries, including an explosive play rush of 34 yards. Hill has some upside as a number 2 in the Ravens' backfield if he can see even 8 to 10 touches. Okay, now for wide receiver this week, it's Greg Dortch for the Arizona Cardinals. If Rondale Moore is down with a hamstring injury, then you can start Dortch this week versus the Carolina defense. Game flow led to Dortch seeing 10 targets this past Sunday versus the Rams, but the wide receiver also saw 13 combined targets in weeks 1 and 2. This could really come down to deployment in Cliff Kingsbury's offense. Dortch has logged at least 13 PPR points per game this season, and he can separate underneath at the second level. Go get him. Okay, now for your last pickup, I have tight end Tyler Conklin for the New York Jets. There is some hesitation here if quarterback Zach Wilson is back on the field for the Jets, as Conklin has been a steady fantasy tight end under Joe Flacco with center. But we can't just ignore the volume here, right? I mean, Conklin has seen 7+ targets per game this season, scoring at least 10 PPR points in all 3 weeks. He has operated as an underneath option for Flacco, catching the ball in the flats versus the zone and seeing targets off of play action. Really, that could carry over well to Wilson given the New York structure's offense. With everyone, that's all I have for this week, but you know where to find me next week. Same time, same place, for more fantasy football advice. But for now, Let's completely switch gears and head to Emily, who's going to dive into a different kind of football.
Thanks, Lily. There's been a lot of changes in the MLS world since the last time I updated you, so let's go. First, who's out of the playoff picture? As of now, there's 7 teams out of the playoff picture: Sporting KC, the Chicago Fire, Toronto FC, the Houston Dynamo, San Jose Earthquakes, the Colorado Rapids, and DC United. On the other side of things, we have 6 teams who have already secured their spot in the playoffs: Philadelphia Union, LAFC, who has already claimed their Week 1 bye to get to Week 2 of playoffs, CF Montreal, Austin FC, FC Dallas, and the New York Red Bulls. That leaves us with 15 teams left, but only 8 spots still open up for grabs. The top teams in each conference get a bye. LAFC has theirs for the West, but Philly could still mess that up for themselves as Montreal is only 6 points behind them. Teams ranked 2 through 4 in each conference will play their first round playoff game with home field advantage. Right now, that would be Austin, Dallas, and Nashville for the West, and Montreal, New York Red Bulls, and NYCFC for the East. The last 4 playoff spots in each division will probably come down to decision day on October 9th, as the 4th through 7th places in the East are all within 7 points of each other, and then the West, they're just within 2 points of each other. For your game day schedule of the weekend, we'll kick off with Toronto and Inter Miami tonight at 6:30 p.m. This game doesn't really mean anything for Toronto since they're already out of playoffs, but it means a lot for Miami as they currently sit in 7th place in the East, so we can expect a lot of effort from them tonight. And tomorrow, 9 games will play out, but there's 3 games in particular that could really shake up the standings the most. The Columbus Crew versus the New York Red Bulls with kickoff at 6:30 p.m., the Vancouver Whitecaps versus Austin FC, which starts at 9, and finally LA Galaxy versus Real Salt Lake with the late game, which kicks off at 9:30. There will also be 4 games on Sunday, 2 of which NYCFC versus Orlando with kickoff at 12, and the Portland Timbers versus LAFC with kickoff at 2 could also stir up the current standings depending on the results from those games. That's all for your MLS update. I'm sure I'll be back soon to keep you up to date on the world of soccer, but for now, Kristen's going to catch you guys up on the MLB playoffs.
Thanks, Emily. Like in soccer, there is loads of excitement as today is the last day in September, which means tomorrow's October, and that is huge for baseball. The season is wrapping up, but let's see who still gets to play in October. The LA Dodgers were the first team to clinch a spot in this year's playoffs as they go in at number 1 for the National League, with this being their 10th straight trip to the playoffs. And for the American League, my guys down in Houston hoping to go in at number 1 as well and winning their division for the 5th time in 6 seasons. The other teams to have claimed a spot in this year's playoffs are the Mets, Cardinals, Blue Jays, Guardians, and the Yankees, while the Phillies, Rays, Padres, and Mariners fight it out to make it to the playoffs. Some key series to be on the lookout for in the next few days start tonight with the Mets at the Braves. The Braves look to try and make another run for the World Series as reigning champs, and the Mets look to change playoff seedings. These 2 teams are fighting for the NL East title in a 3-game series that could have a huge impact on playoff seeding. Another series to watch is the Tampa Bay Rays at the Houston Astros. In a 3-game series starting tonight, the Astros look to clinch the number 1 spot in the American League, while the Rays fight for a postseason berth. The last series to look at is not one wanting to switch up seeding or fighting for a spot, but one to maybe see history happen. That is because Aaron Judge is on the verge of setting an all-new AL single-season home run record. You can watch tonight if that happens as the Yankees take on the Baltimore Orioles. It's going to be a fun October as the playoff games start next Friday with the wild card round. Now, is it too early to pick a winner? Who knows? But I will say I am praying for another Astros championship, which I know many will not be happy about. But for now, can we go back to Aaron Judge being really close to breaking a home run single season record? I mean, that is just insane. I hear Lily, though, has more on that as our fun play of the week, but that'll be after this short break.
Yeah, I always just clap in this part.
This is where everyone's talking amongst themselves. Do you know how to do it? Do you know how to do it?
Are we supposed to smile?
When do we start? Somebody over here already started.
Can we talk about the piccolo part? It's the most complicated one.
It is. If you listen, you're doing it when the band's not playing.
You have to tell me when it starts. I still don't know.
Here we go. Just clapping now.
nailed it.
I practiced this morning.
Mine was just two people.
It has a right and a wrong way of doing it. No. Wrong.
I like my way better.
I don't know how to do the end.
It's just.
I don't know the head.
It's hard by yourself. Hey, it's me again, back here with our Fun Play of the Week, which is also a record-breaking Play of the Week. And to stay on the diamond, thanks to Kristen, our Fun Play of the Week resides in the MLB. New York Yankees star Aaron Judge hits his 61st home run of the season on Wednesday night against the Toronto Blue Jays, tying Roger Maris's American League record. According to ESPN, it took Maris until October 1st, the final game of 1961 season, to hit his 61st, which broke Babe Ruth's single-season mark of 60 home runs, which was initially set in 1927. Judge accomplished this September 28th in the game number 155 for New York, a day after the Yankees clinched the American League East title. Quote, getting the chance to tie Roger Maris, Judge said, "You dream about that stuff. It's kind of unreal." The ball was retrieved by Blue Jays bullpen coach Matt Bushman, and the Yankees director of team security went over to recover the ball. An amazing milestone for Judge's career, and it's safe to assume we will be seeing much more of this from him in the postseason. Now we're not quite done yet, so let's head over to Gus, who is here with this week's high school roundup.
It's hard to believe that I'm saying this, but we are now past the midway point in the high school football season, as both Lawrence and Free State concluded Week 4 play last Thursday and Friday. After dropping their season opener, the Lions of Lawrence High are currently riding a 3-game winning streak, with their most recent one coming against Olathe East 47-6 back last Friday at home. Led by Tyson Grammer's 278 passing yards, the Lions went ahead by 3 scores heading into halftime and never looked back, getting a big win at homecoming and stopping Olathe East from obtaining any momentum. Running back Tywell Reed had 2 touchdowns himself, and Braden Heck also helped out in the ground game, who combined with Reed for 78 rushing yards on the ground. Lawrence High has been one of the more emerging teams in all of 6A football, and if their offense can continue scoring the way they currently are, the Lions have a great chance to be a tough outcome the second half of the season and also into the playoffs. The Lions will head on the road this week and take on Shawnee Mission North tonight at 7 p.m., hoping to get their 4th straight win and to go to 3-0 on the road in 2022. And as for the Firebirds of Free State, they are now 1-3 following a close road loss to Shawnee Mission Northwest last Thursday, September 22nd, despite quarterback Wesley Edison tallying nearly 300 total yards. Edison had 145 passing yards and was 146 rushing yards, but a late interception sealed the deal for the Cougars and gave them the home victory for the Free State Firebirds. Tayware had 73 rushing yards and 41 rushing yards, but Maliko Wadis' 173 yards on the ground kept the Cougars out in front late, outscoring them 17-7 in the second half. Despite them losing their 3rd game of the season last week, Free State has remained close in all of their games and has competed throughout, and now the hope is that they'll be able to come out on the other side of these close games with some victories of their own. Following 2 straight road games for the Firebirds over the last 2 weeks, Free State now returns home for their next 2 games, as they'll take on Shawnee Mission South on Friday night tonight at 7 p.m., looking at their first home victory so far this fall. So that'll wrap it up for this week's high school roundup. Now it's over to Claire Decatur, who will give us a brief history of the history of KU football homecoming.
This year marks the 110th annual homecoming weekend for the University of Kansas. KU has come a long way since their first homecoming in 1912, where the Jayhawk football team took on the Missouri Tigers. The night before, KU students burned a wooden tiger outside of Frazier Hall, which must have been good luck because the Jayhawks defeated the Tigers 12-3. After that, for years, it was a tradition to play the Missouri Tigers for every other homecoming game. In 1956, homecoming themes were introduced to KU, with the first theme being Songs of Victory. This was not only a historic year for homecoming, but was also one for the basketball team, with it being Whit Chamberlain's first year playing as a Jayhawk. Fast forward to 1971, KU took on longtime rival, the Kansas State Wildcats. Not only did the Jayhawks win 39-14, but the university also added a new classic KU mascot. Baby J was hatched out of an egg at the 50-yard line to the sound of the fight song at the homecoming contest. Another iconic KU victory was the 1984 game that made the New York Times. The Jayhawks beat Oklahoma 28-11, breaking the Sooners' undefeated streak.
This victory gave Kansas their first victory over Oklahoma since 1975, as well as their first in Lawrence since 1964. Homecoming festivities have gone on all week, from parades to concerts. Tonight, country singer Chris Lane will be performing on Mass Street at 8:15 for the homecoming block party. Tomorrow, the Jayhawks will take on the Iowa State Cyclones here at David Booth Memorial Stadium at 2:30. Let's hope the Jayhawks keep their game-winning streak to make this another monumental homecoming weekend. This has been your 2-minute warning here. Have a great homecoming weekend. Now, let's kick it over to Lily to close us out.
Well, Playmakers, that's all I have for today. And as I mentioned earlier, it is homecoming weekend, and we are so happy to welcome back all of our alumni to Lawrence to an undefeated Jayhawks in a hopefully packed and electric booth. To keep up to date as Kansas takes on Iowa State, make sure to head to our Instagram at PlaymakersKU, because Sydney and Lily will have your back for the game this weekend. And remember, it's not about the game you played, but the plays you made. Rock Chalk, and see y'all next time.